handle this new thing called television. And, Sony. And they wanted to revive the economy. They'd been torn.
They sure did, didn't they?
Yeah, and everything. But then the equipment started coming.
5 seconds.
All right.
How much?
5 seconds.
Welcome very, very much to Conversations. Pleasure to welcome to the program Paul DeRienzo. And he's a member of the crew here, or the community, a producer here at Manhattan Neighborhood Network. And he's had a very long and distinguished career, I would say, in many aspects of concern with the human condition and the political and larger context evolving of the human society. And we're going to be talking about things in a very comprehensive way. And Paul, thank you very, very much for conversation.
Thank you, Harold.
So good to see you. Share your background a little bit, if you could. Born and raised, that kind of thing.
I was born and raised in New York.
Right, okay.
Right, my parents are from New York, and their parents were immigrants to New York from Italy, and I'm from Hungary, and so I have.
You're from Hungary.
Well, my parents, my great grandparents came from on one side Hungary and the other side Italy.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Yeah, and they lived in the Bronx and Brooklyn.
I see.
Back in the 30s.
What was the
20s.
family like, if I may?
Well, what is it like? A very close-knit Italian family, like you would find in all over America.
It's particularly close-knit in the
I
Italian
think so.
community.
Yeah, and all of us, both sides.
The
Very
Hungarian
close.
side.
Absolutely. Close-knit family.
You know, the man named Ernst Mach, he was a Hungarian. And he was inspirational to Albert Einstein. There's a lot of really smart people come out of Hungary.
Yeah.
Where do you get all your smart?
Eugene Wigner.
Do you get your smart from the Italian or from the Hungarian, do you think?
Both.
You're really very smart. Yeah.
Well, my dad was a nuclear engineer.
Well, that might be some of it. Yeah, that might account for some of that.
He is, actually. He's still alive. And my mom was an antiques dealer.
Uh-huh. Oh, well, that's where the intelligence comes from, to deal with all that
so.
antiques. That's a real tricky
And
business.
her mother was born in Paris, while my great-grandfather was exhibiting at the Paris World's Fair in 1907.
Wow, okay, yeah. And you were born and raised, where were you born? In New York?
Yeah, I was born in New York.
Yeah. And your dad was talk about your dad.
Well, my dad's been on the show a few times, on my show.
On your show,
several times.
Talk about your show. You got to let him talk.
Yeah, it's
called.
tonight at 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
Tuesday night at 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
On MNN, on the Lifestyle Channel, Channel 2, I guess they call it.
Yeah, is it an hour or a half hour?
Half an hour.
Half hour, yeah.
It's a half an hour live.
And it's call-in?
Yeah, we try to have call-in.
Yeah,
yes,
right,
when it works.
Yeah.
And it's called Let Them Talk.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, and before that, I had the same show on WBAI for many years on radio.
Yeah, right. Now back again to your dad. He was in nuclear. We had some talk.
Nuclear engineer.
Yeah, we had some talk about that the other night with you over coffee at the end of the evening and all that kind of stuff.
I have a lot of opinions about
and
that.
you have a differing opinion about nuclear energy. Could we address it maybe than your dad does?
Absolutely.
And I think it's a major issue.
Yeah, I talk about it with him all the time.
Yeah, okay.
We talked about it pretty much openly on the show.
Yeah.
It's not uncommon. Listen, you have to respect the engineers. The engineers, the political and policy people who decide to build these things, whether they're atom bombs or nuclear power plants or nuclear powered submarines or surface ships, and all the myriad of things that are done with nuclear energy today, and any other engineering. Thank goodness for the engineers and the scientists, because I wouldn't trust the people who make the policy decisions to make them or to build them.
You don't think that the people who make them are being done at the direction of the policy people?
Yes, they are.
Yeah, the policy people are the ones who are behind
it.
They
make the decisions. It's the engineers who actually put the...
Engineers are like hired hand on a ranch? They do whatever they're told?
Well, it's funny when...
Do they have any conscience, or do they have any input or anything?
An engineer is a person who is sort of like MacGyver. If you ever saw the TV.
MacGyver television or something.
Yes, it's sort of like a person who can take whatever's in a room and create whatever you need to solve the problem you have. Engineers rarely ever think in terms of new developments in technology.
Is that right?
Right. As a matter of fact, they hate to be confused by people who bring in new developments in technology. They like to construct things out of already tried and tested known. So they can take tested known theories and tested known items and gadgets and devices and put them together in a new way to create a new...
If they're all hung up in reifying or reestablishing the established order, then why would they want something new to come in and knock all their ideas down?
They usually don't get along with
No, because, and I'm saying it's not just engineers. There are certain people of that nature when it comes to all kinds of questions. Yeah.
Well, in the science world, the physicist is sort of on the other side of the spectrum, because the physicist is dealing with theory. And often they're very hyper cautious and are always saying, well, we shouldn't try this until we've developed a newer technology to handle all the expected problems. Well,
who does that?
More like the physicist or the pure scientist.
Well, I'm confused. Okay, I'm trying to understand.
An engineer and a physicist, they work together. In the nuclear industry, they both are necessary, but they're very different personalities. They're very different types of people on opposite ends of the spectrum.
And your dad was involved in that.
He was
even at the early stages and everything.
Yes,
have you shared thoughts with him about the history of that and everything and the significance of it?
We're coming on the 70th anniversary of Hiroshima.
Okay, yeah, right.
And Nagasaki.
Yeah.
And President Obama will be visiting Hiroshima, the first sitting U.S. president ever to visit. And
so is he adult enough at the time of?
He thinks it was a terrible thing to have done.
Well, wait.
My dad always used.
He was a nuclear engineer. Is that what you're saying?
After that period, but in the technology that came out of that, and his feeling was that, and what he's told me is that it was a dirty trick.
What
the U.S. pulled a dirty trick on.
What is the dirty trick they pulled? I don't understand.
Dropping an atom bomb on.
Oh, the dropping of the bomb, not the inventing, or not the the research that went into
developing nuclear engineering, dropping the atom bomb.
It took a lot of icon-breaking research by Mr. Einstein and others in order to get the possibility of this new thing that we had no sense of, the general society, called atomic energy, did it not? There was a whole revolution in physics and abstract intellectualising about the nature of the universe.
I'd like to have my dad on here because he can talk about it better than I can, but I've had him on my show, and he will describe how, when he was a kid in Brooklyn, across the street from the Brooklyn Navy Yard during the war, and he saw the ships being brought back, that were damaged in the war.
It was a horrible thing.
And the battles that were going on, and sometimes with the dead sailors still on board the ship.
Right.
I mean, everybody had to participate in trying to defend the country and to fight and prosecute the war at that point, whatever they felt, and there was somewhat of a national unity on that basis.
The country was totally together.
So he got a job at the Brooklyn Navy Yard.
Okay.
Well, he had a few different jobs, but after he
But he had gotten an education or something.
Well, he was offered. He worked at a pharmacy on Adelphi Street in Brooklyn.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think it's still there.
Yeah.
And the owner asked him if he wanted to go to medical school, and the owner of the pharmacy had promised my dad that he would finance his going to medical school.
Okay.
But my dad will tell you the story that he had gone through a scare where my grandmother had gotten ill and he had to run and get a doctor, which was hard to do in those days, and physically go to their house, bang on the door, drag them over. And then he said because of that experience, he never wanted to be a doctor and hated the idea of going into medicine.
I see.
That the thing that really amazed him and turned him into an engineer was around the same 1936.
Wait a minute, 36?
In 1936, he was 7 years old. He was 9 years old. And he said he looked...
He was 7 years older than... He's 7 years older than I was.
Yes.
Okay.
And he was in fourth grade at the public school down the street. And the kids all were looking up and saw the... Hindenburg fly over Brooklyn.
Actually saw it in the air.
It came late, went over Brooklyn and over his neighborhood and continued on.
Yeah.
And he said that he wanted to be an engineer from that moment on.
Wanted to be an engineer, okay.
From that moment on.
Yeah.
He wanted to build things like that.
Yeah, it's really interesting. They build things.
Yeah, and he said it went to its death because it went to Lindenhurst where it blew up 2 hours later, which was, which is, to me, an interesting story in itself because it is full of double meaning there.
We've been here about 200,000 years as a species. The inventing and the learning of the special theory and the rest of what came down from physics, and that there was this force that could be a source of energy and so forth, was a major transformation in terms of our understanding the universe that had practical application.
If you're a physicist, for an engineer, they don't like to think about that. They think in terms of how can I make this work using the stuff that's in this workshop right now?
You ever heard of a man named Garwin? Garwin.
No.
Garwin was the one who, he was there in Chicago when the first thing went off. The first chain reaction.
Oh, right, at the
under the football field. In Chicago. Fermi,
that was in 1942 or
something like that. He was there at that time, and then he was the one. He got involved with Teller, and Teller was the one, and he were the one that designed. The atomic bomb is something, but the thing that really is indicative of that whole development is it's in a whole league by itself. Is the thermonuclear.
Right. That came later in the 1950s.
It was Garwin who designed that. He designed that bomb.
Right.
And that's the one that is really indicative of the destructive capability of the atomic.
My dad never
we
wanted to have
could
anything
live
with
with atomic bombs. They're just an extension sort of the artillery and things like that. But it's the thermonuclear weapons that are qualitatively new. And that came within our lifetime.
But now they have a new generation of nuclear bombs called dial-a-yield bombs. What
is that? I don't know.
A dial-a-yield means that the pilot can actually dial on a switch in the plane how big of an explosion it'll be.
The bomb that's going to be dropped would be?
It could be like 0.5 kilotons, it could be 20 kilotons, it could be 150, it could be 350.
Up to what?
Well, usually 350 is the biggest, which would be 150 times Hiroshima.
Wow, yeah.
That's as big as they use nowadays. I mean, back during...
Oh, yeah, they don't use it much.
Russia, the Soviet Union, and the United States were into a real
race.
It really wasn't a race per se. It was really... like a bunch of men getting like crazy in their mind about proving themselves to the other group. They started like one-upping each other how big of a bomb they could make.
Well, that's what mankind has been doing throughout all of our time on the planet.
And then both realized, actually, at the height of that it was sort of a stupid endeavor. And so they began nuclear arms negotiations at a certain point.
Well,
I think it was really already started by the time of the Cuban Missile Crisis, but the Cuban Missile Crisis was really a wake-up
call. You're young.
Call.
Were you alive and conscious at that time? I've never in my life been so scared as in '62.
Yeah, my fist. They made us. I vaguely remember they making us hide under the desk when I was in first or second grade.
No, but that was very real.
I remember the Kennedy assassination. That's really the first thing I remember.
Well, that's another.
That was a year later.
Yeah, that's
what I really remember.
Well, I remember that it was down to where they came close. They really did come very, very close to unleashing it. It would have meant the destruction of civilization.
Yeah.
If that had happened, the destructive capability, it would have ruined civilization.
Many people in the military are in favor of it.
Well, there are military people who are very much in favor of that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But anyway, the point I'm getting at is it seems to me that's a major crucial breaking point in terms of the destructive capability of mankind's collective capability to bring down destruction.
Yeah.
And that's called the basis of what's called realpolitik. Real politics, not idle thinking about what might be nice if we could all be friendly and that kind of thing. But realpolitik, power comes out of the end of a gun. And that's been the history of the planet.
Right. However, with the nuclear thing, there's a giant lie that's been perpetrated on humanity.
Okay.
Since at least 1946, because after 1945, the original idea was to use the atom bomb as just a big bomb. It was just, instead of a whole plane load of bombs, we could have just one bomb instead of like a whole flight of planes that they needed to destroy Tokyo or to destroy Berlin. You could have one plane with one bomb. It'd be easy to get through. People were looking at it tactically as a weapon that would be used tactically.
Yeah.
And
full tilt boogie war effort.
Right. And though there was a battle because the Army had been the developers of the atomic bomb, and General Groves had been in charge of the Manhattan Project, an Army general, and the Navy had been cut out of it, and the Air Force had been cut out of it. Well, it wasn't an Air Force yet. It was the Army Air Force, but the nascent Air Force wanted part of it too. And so all the other branches of the military wanted part of all that money and all that prestige.
Yeah, and there is a lot of money involved. Yeah.
So they decided to test So there was the first bomb, which was in Alamogordo, New Mexico, the second one on Hiroshima, the third one in Nagasaki, and they decided to test the fourth and fifth one in 1946 at Bikini Island, Bikini Atoll. Not the hydrogen bomb test years later, but the original Bikini Atoll. It would be 2 atom bombs, both about the size of the Hiroshima bomb.
Okay.
The first one.
What were they testing for?
It was it was the first
They brought
mass.
people at Marshall Islands or something?
It was the Bikini Island, and they invited all the media of the world to be there. It was the first massive worldwide showing news event in history, and they had the United States government had invited every country in the world to send representatives, and there were thousands of cameras, hundreds and hundreds of reporters, and they brought everybody. They flew them out. They took them on boats. Everybody was taken out there at government expense, and they were put into bunkers, and they all had a perfect view of it. And they were going to show the atom bomb to the world. And what they did is they took captured German and Japanese ships and some obsolete American ships. They put them around where the bomb was going to go off. And then they fired the first bomb, Able. It was called Bomb Able, and it was a fizzle. It was a dud.
Yeah, it happens.
It was a huge embarrassment.
Yeah, it would be.
Right. So it was one of the most ignominious.
Well, I know what you mean.
Yeah, right.
Ignominious.
Ignominious.
It was a mouthful.
It was really embarrassing.
Yeah.
And so they got Baker up, the second bomb, and this one they dropped through the hole in the bottom of a ship 100 feet into the water, and they exploded the second one. Well, you never explode an atom bomb underwater.
I don't
There's
know
a reason
why.
It made a gigantic trillion-ton column of radioactive water that spread around the globe. It was one of the they compounded the ignominy of the fizzle by a second blast that poisoned half the world. It was.
Well, wait a minute. Poison. Go ahead. Go on.
It made a huge cloud. You have to see the bomb to believe it.
That's really interesting. You got that all done. I wasn't even aware.
Right.
I don't think it had that big an effect.
So they immediately canceled Charlie. It was a big embarrassment to the United States, right? And it was a laughing stock. But this is the key, made the United States would be actually the atom bomb ended by 1946 with the U.S. not as feared nuclear power, but as sort of a laughing stock, as a sort of a crazy giant, a maniac country.
Gosh, that's
it was a huge embarrassment, and they had to really shut it up real quick. And so
that's a reading of things I'd never heard.
That really happened.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Okay, and then. So it was a big embarrassment. The whole world saw it. It was all over the world. The picture was everywhere. It was an amazing picture. I mean, the explosion was unbelievable. But the embarrassment of it was compounded, and the real reason that they shut it down and didn't want anybody to know anything, because a secret was discovered at that moment in front of the whole world that they then had to shut everything down and keep a secret. Imagine that everybody saw it. They went out to those ships, and the Navy, all the ships were still floating. Almost all of them were still floating. None of them were sunk. So the Navy said, see, atom bombs can't stop ships. They're as powerful as atom bombs are. They're nothing against our ships that are built never to sink. So they went out to the ships, and they took the Geiger counters, and and as they came closer and closer to the ship, right, the Geiger counters started going crazy. Everybody on all those ships would have been killed by the radiation. At that moment, and it really took that moment, took the fifth bomb, really, before they recognized the degree to which the world had changed, that the next war would kill everybody.
No, that's a big jump.
They realized it then, and they had to keep. That was a top secret. In other words, they had done something that discovered a top secret piece of information in front of the whole world.
That's something interesting you just said.
And then they had to shut it up fast.
Yeah, well, that was an interesting thing you just said, that the whole world could be destroyed.
Right.
Now, that's a jump to a thing that is not true. That's not true. They're not going to destroy the world. Nothing we have can destroy the world. I'm trying to get precise.
Yes. By destroy the world, you spread radiation.
No, they didn't have the possibility even of massive destruction, because if you're starting to compare it with what we have afterward, it was the hydrogen bomb and now it's the Trident fleet. And it's the capability of a thing. And that does then bring us to a time, Mr. Rickover and all that, and the tridents that we have in the bottom of the ocean and everything like that. And they got it all down how much there is. And that if weapons systems that exist, now this is the year 2016. It probably was sometime before that. If they were in a spasm of hatred, angst-ridden has been the history of humanity, where the enemy's at the gate. We got to do everything we can. It's the end of the world. We got to do that. We got to let it go. Boom! It got off, and then it got off, that apparently from the meddling. I wonder if your dad has that or you do. Are we at a point now where if that were to happen, right. Let me make the point. Okay. If that were to happen, it would mean the end of the entire Homo sapiens species. Well, wouldn't have been in '62. End of civilization, right. Terrible destruction.
There's two things we're talking about.
Yeah, right.
When I say end of the world, I'm not talking about the blast damage of the bomb.
No, I'm not either.
Which is incredible.
No, I'm not either.
The incredible blast damage of
But you're talking about back and then, if they had done that, it wouldn't have been the end of the civilization or anything even.
The release, no, but they knew in the future.
That's a projection.
Yeah, they were projecting into the
future.
But
it took a lot of engineers to come and take that theoretical development to get finally to where we now know, or do we know, that the weapons that exist are absolutely, if they're unleashed, their power, their capability would mean the end of our species if they were unleashed
Anybody can make one. The government knew. The United States government knew.
You want to avoid the question, I guess.
No, okay? No. I'm saying, I want to say this. The government already knew.
What?
That every other country that wanted to make an atom bomb would be able to.
I don't know what that means. I mean, I'm trying to get to the question of the collective destructiveness.
Once the original expense of the R&D to develop the first bomb,
the hydrogen bomb,
right?
Or
the atom bomb, the first bomb that was blown off in Alamogordo, New Mexico.
Oh well, yeah. Okay.
It opened the door. It would have been almost impossible to make the first atom bomb, and when that was achieved and the first atom bomb was created, and it was tested in July 15th, 1945 at Alamogordo, New Mexico.
Yeah, right.
Then it was relatively easy for many other countries to get the atom bomb.
Well, so what? I mean, that's not the question.
Well,
the question is, the question I put to you is, have we, at that time in 1949, they could have blown up everything they possibly could, and there would still be civilization. There'd be people walking around. There'd be you and me, and we would have arguments over who's going to get the milk and all these kind of things. But something has gone on since then in terms of extending it, and it's only when you get to the full tilt boogie creation of thermonuclear weapons that are mostly held in the possession of the United States of America, the good guys, who are out to have the world become made in their image and that kind of thing. But if they were in somebody does something, blows up the Empire State Building or something, and it's unleashed. The tridents are sent loose.
Sure.
Okay? Is it modeled that would mean that there would not be a single human being continuing to live on this planet? That's the question. Is there any modeling that your dad might be familiar with? I've seen modeling that is the case. But it wouldn't have happened in 46.
The nuclear winter could happen.
The nuclear winter's another thing.
Yeah, no, that's what it would put so much dust into the atmosphere. But that was we're talking about a 1970s, 1980s.
Yeah, somewhere.
Thermonuclear war between the United States and the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
Those days are over. But we live in a different time.
Well, that's still not addressing the question.
They're going around. Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't know.
Okay. I'm asking you.
Let me.
No, we don't know. But has there been modeling of that?
No. Yes, Sagan. Yes, there has been.
Sagan.
Carl
Sagan would say it. It's said loosely.
Came up with
no, they would say it loosely. It's the end of the world. You just did. You said it about 1946. It wouldn't have been the end of the world.
They knew.
You said it.
Right.
What? What's the negative projection of human power, intellectual power on this planet in terms of evolution?
Our armies.
That's what I'm trying to get at.
All the way of fighting war up till that time are over. All right. It's impossible, and some people say this is a positive aspect of the bomb, is that there can never be a war like World War I or World War II again.
Well, okay, yeah.
There can never be.
Yeah.
It will never happen. And no matter how much Donald Trump or even President Obama wants to say the United States is the strongest country in the world, there is no strongest country in the world. They're all...
No, I would say there's no doubt the United States is the most powerful country in the world in a hugely quantitative new way.
As long as
it's
it doesn't go nuclear. Once it goes nuclear, it doesn't matter.
What do you mean it goes nuclear?
The world goes nuclear.
Yeah, well, okay.
It's over for the United States.
Yeah, but that has nothing to do with what I'm asking. I'm not asking about...
That's the point I'm making.
That's like saying we're too smart to do it. Or we don't do it, or we'll do something to make sure that doesn't happen.
We live under mutually assured
destruction. We did, and we do now, but I don't think it's mutual. I think it would require the unleashing of weapons by the United States of America. Now, we don't think of that because we're the good guy.
Our Army, our Navy, our Air Force. I think Putin said recently that every single American aircraft carrier would be sunk by Russia in the first 24 to 48 hours of any war.
Well, I don't know. That's a quantitative measure.
That's a strong thing to say.
Okay. Maybe not fair. You do not want to address it.
They have underwater drones.
Okay, fair enough. I won't try to drag it out.
They're already following them everywhere they go.
My suggestion is that we do. We've crossed that line somewhere between then to where now, and the whole history of the human race has been realpolitik. In the early stages, political legitimacy of one tribe or group or something would be established by whoever had the biggest club, could hit the other guy on the head.
Right.
And then get soldiers to protect his immediate thing, and then get PR, and then get political, and all that to establish legitimacy. That's the way the states have been achieved. It's called who's realpolitik.
Right.
It's the philosopher's stone of political economy and political thinking, that whoever's got the power can intimidate and do whatever they want with the masses of the people who are like serfs on a feudal estate. That's the way the power structures of the world have been built, from Nebuchadnezzar to Pharaoh to Rome to the families of 1,000 years after Rome falls, the hereditary families. And it continues, and that now has reached a point where it's not a club, or it's not just another, a machine gun. A Gatling gun could conquer India with muskets.
Right.
Whoever had the advantage. Now we got the advantage, and that advantage is now won. Is it? That's what I'm saying. If it isn't, it should be made available. Aren't you for letting people talk, or letting things be known to people rather than having it hidden in all kinds of talk?
Well,
the weapons,
what's being hidden
collectively, the capability exists. To render the habitat unable to have any human being continuing on this planet.
That's my point.
That's the
and
question.
They've known that since 1946.
No, is it the case?
Yes.
Oh, you think it is? Okay.
They've known it since 1946.
Doesn't that signal a qualitative?
Well, first of all, let me say this.
Okay.
There's two different things. I do believe that even under the worst of circumstances, small, isolated populations of humans would probably exist and probably be able to, over a long period of time, reestablish human or Homo sapien life on Earth.
That's what you think,
but
right? Okay. Then
you have to understand that evolution is still going on, so there's no guarantee they will look like us or have our.
That's evading the question. No, that's okay. You want to. That's what they will do. They will evade that question.
What question?
The political leadership will evade the question that the weapons are species lethal.
Yes, they
not
are.
That somebody will be
small populations might survive.
Well, then that's not species lethal. I'm saying that is ruled out. There will be not a single human being existing after the unleashing of it.
My friend John Trudell, the Native American leader, just passed away recently. Very good friend of mine. I interviewed him at length.
Yeah.
From the Native American's perspective.
Yeah,
right. And how he put it was very interesting. He said, "Listen, the Earth's got the time. Humanity can pollute the rivers, can destroy the atmosphere, can spread radiation and nuclear destruction over every square inch of the globe over and over again till they've come as damn close as humanly possible to eliminating all life. And you know what? If there's one blade of grass left, if there's one cell still of bacteria in the dirt somewhere, in enough million years, probably life would reestablish on Earth, and it would not look at all like this, and it would have nothing to do with us."
Well, thank you for that. That's obviously another question. I don't think anybody...
He would say to me, the Earth's got the time.
Well, all right, that's a nice thought, probably off some spiritual thing about Mother Nature or something that is part of the mythic legends that have been part of the human condition.
For all we know, they're going to be digging around in Mars and find out that that's what they did up there.
Yeah. Well, that's a little bit of an extension out over
but is it possible for humanity? I remember Planet of the Apes, right? When Charlton Heston.
That's a movie.
Yeah, but it's a great. How else can you depict what we're talking about but through fiction? I mean, the fiction, because it hasn't happened. If it happens,
they call modeling.
Right.
They call things modeling.
Right.
You don't
when
you do it.
Movies have modeled it beautifully.
I know that, and that's why I'm asking the question. You're modeling, and then you're fudging. And I don't think there's any chance under any circumstance that we can destroy life. Life is a much more precious liaison.
I said maybe one cell might exist.
No, but that's making an assumption that goes beyond. I'm talking about one part of life, which is called Homo sapien. We've evolved after 200,000 years. We've got to the point where...
Why would we continue evolving?
Pardon?
Why would those humans... First of all, radiation...
No, we got to evolve maybe to another order that we've been in a certain order as a species. We've got to get to another order of being in the universe in the evolutionary process, or else we're going to stop the evolution of consciousness up the hominoid line.
Well, I think that's already happened in Donald Trump.
No, it hasn't happened. We're still here.
So look at Donald Trump.
What is that? That's got nothing. He hasn't done anything.
Says if he isn't the symbol of the end of human rationality and consideration, I don't know who is.
I don't think. No. Okay, we avoid the question.
I think he is.
No, we avoid the question, and that's what we do. But I just think that's it. But then the question is, it's called modeling, and I think it must be known to people. And it seems to me, from what I've been able to, I'd like somebody, if they're in the audience of credibility, to present the modeling that's done on that. I'm sure it's done.
Well,
and I've seen some that says that's the case.
Right.
Not a single human being would be able to survive. It'd be the end of our species, and that's something kind of new after 200,000 years.
And right. Well,
now,
but isn't it interesting that...
And that's capability. And because what I'd like to bring up, what about the capability on what Bucky Fuller might have called livingery, or the capability of improving, or of changing, or of trying. Evolution is a thing where you get change. Change comes, new appears. Okay, we came out of Homo erectus. Mm-hmm. We were contained for a few million years in Homo erectus, and then there came a new species. We've been contained for couple 100,000 years in what we call Homo sapien. We may be coming into a liberated order of the whole thing, which is equally significant existentially, if you can understand, to the fact we can wipe it all out. Yeah. That might be a signal that this is a time for a qualitative transformation in the human order, a liberation that has not been able to be, we didn't have the capability of achieving until now. Our generation, which is a little hard to think, how could we have been born into the defining generation in evolutionary terms?
Well, we've been building at it for like 3,000 years. I
mean, what's been at it? We've been at it 200,000 years.
And I'm sure I don't know as much about ancient Asian philosophies, which I'm sure also address this, but I know in the Western world, it was some of the Greek philosophers who were among the first to question what would happen if you cut a piece of matter into smaller and smaller pieces. What would you come to a point where there was nothing left? And of course they called it the atom, right? And so what are things made out of? What is the purpose of life? What is behind the forces that move the earth? What's behind the force of the sun? Is the earth flat? Is it round? These kind of questions were raised 3,000 years ago.
Yeah, it's pretty good. A lot of done there.
And you know what?
It was a slave society in Athens.
Of course. Yeah. But the United States, in its history, much shorter history,
we're a slave society.
250 years.
We're still a slave
society. We avoided the question.
Yeah, right.
Those questions.
I
mean, in American education, and if you look at the history of America, what was it always about? It was really about over and over again about making products, making things to sell, making services, making
we had to wipe out
devices.
The Indians first.
Right, everything
the
that was
indigenous
part of it, right?
population.
The best way,
and that's the history of the world. We had the bigger gun. You can go kill. You can go kill and enslave and do all that.
Iron,
and we're still doing
steel,
it.
Oil.
Yeah,
Rockefeller, Vanderbilt Rockefeller,
James
J.P.
Joyce,
Carnegie, J.P. Morgan.
And
we went through all this kind of development, but it was all aimed towards making consumer products.
That's a little bit of a limitation. James Joyce said history is a nightmare from which I'm attempting to awaken. Is there any chance we might be awakening from a 200,000-year nightmare of insufficiency?
Well, in the
or
world
something
of,
along
the world
those lines,
of physics, which started with those Greek philosophers, claims now that we're just holograms projected on a surface.
There's a lot going on with Ray Kurzweil and company. They're going to have a big meeting in June here, those cyberneticists and so forth. Anyway, I think it's really, really hard to imagine that that would be 10,000 generations, and we might be the defining generation in evolutionary terms after 10,000. Why didn't it happen in the year 600? Why didn't it happen in 1900?
Well, that's my philosophy.
It's like pregnancy.
America and their engineering genius came together with the European
desire to answer questions most Americans thought were boring and out of the, have no real meaning in the world, but until they discovered there was something called nuclear energy. Why are we here? What is the nature of matter? What is the purpose of the universe? When the engineering questions and those questions came together in 1939, in a letter signed by Einstein to Franklin Roosevelt.
Yeah, right.
And
well,
Szilard,
he knew it. Yeah.
Then
and he was informed. Einstein.
The two came together at that moment.
Einstein was informed by Ernst Mach, a Hungarian.
Mm-hmm.
He set the pattern for Mr. Einstein to go. Maybe Einstein shouldn't have been here. Maybe if we hadn't had Einstein, we wouldn't have all these problems about being able to wipe it all out. On the other hand, we wouldn't have a lot of what is making positive. Mm-hmm. You got a positive, negative kind of capability that's not just a slow climb up Mount Sisyphus or something. It's one time of qualitative transformation into maybe a new relationship to the universe in species terms. Mm-hmm. Something along those lines. We're going to do a program after this with you with Dambrot. Okay. He's got a new term.
What's that?
It's I can't even pronounce it.
Transspeciesm?
Yeah.
I think I heard that.
Yeah. How does it happen? How does the new appear in species or in qualitative new terms, not just quantitative? And what's the situation we're in? That's what I was trying to, in a certain sense, get out. But anyway, too much. You've been doing this program for a long time. Let them talk, right?
Yeah.
And what are you trying to reveal with the program?
Well, I think I saw it first as exposure, I think, of the crimes of what I consider sort of the, I grew up.
Where to begin?
Yeah, right. Of the crimes of society, and I was very much affected by the Vietnam War. I mean, I think people are affected by the time they grow up. I mean, when my dad grew up in the 30s and the 40s, and so loyalty to government, keeping your mouth shut when you're supposed to, doing the job in order to, against the foreign outside threat was the accepted norm of millions and millions of people.
And the educational process,
right, and everything like that. But then pop out comes me. And I grew up during this crazy war called Vietnam, which is totally criminal, obviously criminal. Any child seeing it would see that it was a criminal war. All the other kids knew it was, also said it was, from the earliest age, except for a few conservatives, all said it was criminal.
Well,
and we all saw ourselves in line to be drafted into it. And so it became a necessity. To become politically involved.
Why do you think we got so bogged down in that? That's another thing we can test.
I've heard lots of stories.
I think it was just an extension of George Kennan. Kennan was the major person who was informing all of the thinking. He had the heartland theory and so forth, and you've got a geostrategic thinking, Mackinder and so forth.
I like
out
to
of
simplify
Britain.
It, though. I don't know if you'll agree with this, but to simplify it down, there was a period of time when there wasn't a war in the late 50s, and there was a need for a war for people in the military to get the rank and the experience they needed to increase in rank and increase in pay. And therefore the war became what they thought would be a small, controllable war in a far-off country that most Americans wouldn't know about, where people could get their medals and ribbons and build their careers and move on. And that they totally underestimated. I have a friend who's Russian, and I always say, he says, "What do you think Russia beat Germany?" And I expected me to say,
they did. 30 million dead.
I knew he was waiting for me to say, "Oh, I guess because of the communist ideology, it's expressed by the great helmsman and Generalissimo Stalin, right? So he could knock me down into the dirt." And I looked at him and I said, "Because of the Asiatic mindset." And you know what he said to me? "That's part of it."
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Right? And my students, many of them from Asia, laughed, and they said, "We will." Sacrifice 100,000 lives for a crack in the dirt. Are you ready for that?
What's the crack in the dirt?
We'll fight for a small period. We'll put incredible effort, the Asian armies, into fighting for a very small
thing like Vietnam, you mean?
Yes.
Oh, I see,
And America is totally unprepared for that.
Well, I think you had Mackinder and you had all the thinking of geostrategic thinking, and then they've certainly built up a huge military focus on military. Just trillions go into the army. Go into the military budget here. People are starving in the streets, and they go and build more weapons to get more. Mr. What's his name in North Korea is now getting the weapons in order to be able to be in on the game of being able to intimidate with these weapons that are overwhelmingly that way and everything. They get to that point.
The U.S., and the Western countries have not shown really. I mean, the United States, since the Civil War, has never really taken like super losses like Germany or England or France or Russia.
600,000 in the Civil War.
Or that was the last time. That
was horrible.
And as a proportion of the population, that would have been like 6 million.
Russia took the real brunt of the Second War.
Right.
30 million people were killed, I think, in Russia. Horrible.
Think if you take 600,000 from the United States, the population was
600,000 what?
In the Civil War for the United States, was 600,000 both sides, and the population was 30 million. 1/10 the population today, so you multiply by 10.
Yeah, what do you get? I don't know.
6 million dead. 6 million, the equivalent
would
of
be
6 million dead today in a similar war. Right? So that would, and I think Germany in World War II lost about 5 or 6 million men, and Russia lost 20 or 30 million or more,
I thought more like 30, Yeah,
and
they had 600,000 died in Leningrad, the siege, I think. It was horrible.
I read somewhere
I'm not sure of that figure.
Russia kept all the details of the war somewhat secret, and that in their files, that the number of battles that are known to have happened in the Western Front are about 50% of the ones that really did happen. There was double the battles and double the losses.
Yeah, everything got to be PR and so forth, and building a case for your view of things.
They were afraid of the West.
And geostrategic thinking and political thinking, geostrategic thinking, and that was coming out of Britain. Britain ruled the waves, didn't they? And everything, and that was Mackinder and thinking, and they had and George Kennan became the voice of geostrategic thinking, informing the political leadership of the United States and the world with his thinking of containment. He had the idea of who controls the East European plain controls the heartland, who controls the heartland controls the world island, who controls the world island controls the world. That you have geostrategic interest, and it was just that thinking. So they saw communism coming out like a big red amoeba out of the Eurasian landmass, invulnerable to sea power. It was sea power by which you projected your inordinately capable military prowess to a cow and beat others, and that was being challenged. And so now you had these people coming out from the interior of the Eurasian landmass, and then it was like a big red amoeba coming up. And then 48, China went. Well, no, it's based.
The Mongol hordes.
It's it's the containment theory. You had to contain it because you had to contain the outreach, because then China went under in 48. It was like a big red amoeba coming out of the Eurasian landmass down to the rimland. And you had to. That's why they were fighting in Vietnam, because it was all going to fall into the hands of the communists, and that was the thinking that caused us to fight that war.
But let me ask you, put it to you: how do you think all this system that's been set up and gone through all these permutations? How would President Trump handle it?
Oh, I don't want to try to even consider that. I mean,
these are things. These are very, whether you agree with them or not. Stimson, Kennan, the brilliant young men. He was back during FDR, Secretary of War. He was very involved in this as well.
Was Stimson or Simpson?
Stimson.
Stimson. Okay.
Yes. He was a secretary.
Yeah, well, that would be the Second World War. That was the difference.
That's where a lot of this started. The thinking globally. I mean, they started to realize, especially since they had an atom bomb, they were developing that they weren't stupid then. They saw that this was going to have global reach. Right. They didn't realize how global and how powerful a weapon it was until a few years later. Then it started to sink in, and then they started really trying to keep it a secret from people because they didn't want to scare everybody. But it still sort of dribbled out, since the Russians kept blowing up bigger and bigger ones, and they started finding strontium in children's teeth around the whole world. So they knew that testing was poisoning the whole country, the whole world. So
and there was a race between Soviet Union.
Yeah, it was an insane race, not really based on logic or
political power,
just political.
And now we build it up to where the United States is the unquestioned superpower, and we don't talk about it much. It's mostly in the Navy, I think.
So
it's
Trump is in charge of that.
Well, they would be in a way, except you've got.
He'd have the codes.
They got all
codes.
all of that, and you've got this incredible Trident fleet. It's where the real power is. Right. The atomic power on the Trident fleets, if it could be put. Some people think we ought to be able to take atomic energy. Hansen is the one who was the original, global warming guy. He's now all in favor of atomic energy to bring electric energy to the world.
Right.
And you can take it right off the Trident submarines as fuel.
You might disagree with me, but my belief is this, The only hope for humanity.
Okay, this is important. Everybody.
The
A
only,
drum. Let me do a drum. The hope for humanity.
Right.
Go.
We have to stop all nuclear development. It has to.
All development.
Yeah, all development has to stop, and we have to just put we have to put it back in the box, and the way to put it back in the box, and it works. This works. It's actually shown to work.
Yeah, I think I disagree
If you're not developing new nuclear weapons, if you're not spreading nuclear energy, nuclear power everywhere, then the knowledge base starts to diminish over the generations, and it does start to disappear.
Okay, well,
that's one of the main arguments of the pro-nuclear people, is that we're losing our knowledge by not developing new stuff.
Well, that is maybe, but he says it's the only thing to really face.
And we should, in my opinion, we should lose the knowledge.
No. His position is and he's the pioneer, the original guy of global warming. Everybody's now on the bandwagon, and they want it all to be Mother Nature with solar and panels and all of this, and they link or conflate atomic energy with fossil fuels.
Right.
But atomic energy is clean, and atomic energy, if it were safe, a lot of people saying it is safe. He's saying it is safe. There's a lot of rumors about how difficult it is because it was a war to get contract for something else. But if it was safe, then you can get your energy to all the energy needs of the world without any pollution from the atomic weapons by getting energy to run them from the weapon systems, the Trident submarines. You've got it already there. You could do. What are you going to do? Bury it?
That's what they do.
You could run it. No, it'd be a good thing. No, you want to do that?
They bury it.
Why are you going to? You think you're going to put it back in the hole? What if he's right? What if he's right that the source of energy, of atomic energy off the Tridents, let's just say, or atomic energy, is safe? It's been given a bad rap by all kinds of bad publicity and things that aren't really true. I don't think there's been that much danger, really, but it's made really, really super duper dangerous, and it's not. And it could be safe, it could be used, and then we could use the thing that could be used for weapons for peaceful purposes, and you wouldn't have to build a bunch of simply ugly windmills all over the place.
Oh, I don't mind the windmills.
Well, maybe, but it's going to be. they got economics and the cost and everything.
But can I lay this out? That in the 1960s, when they were going crazy, and my dad was seeing a lot of business building nuclear reactors all over the United States. They built over 100 of them. Yeah. Right.
And they had to put all these safeguards in.
Well, they built over 100 of them, and the dream was that there would be energy too cheap to meter, that you would just give it away for free, and that they actually advertised as Ready Kilowatt, a cartoon character that Americans should use more electricity. Increase their use of electricity to increase the demand for more electricity, so there'd be more of a reason to build atom bombs. Then there was
why would you build atom bombs? You don't build atom bombs.
I consider them the same almost.
No, they're not. They're completely different.
Well, whatever. Nuclear power plants, pardon me, and I consider them ideological.
They got these new ones, they got new ones, and they claim that most authoritative people say they're totally safe. France gets 90% of its energy from atomic energy. Safe, clean, no pollution of the air. You want to pollute the air till you get all the windmills made?
They're unnecessary.
Well, maybe, if you want to have windmills all over. The economics are not there.
When the Arab oil embargo came, if you tried to put out a Ready Kilowatt, use more electricity campaign today, a person would probably be arrested or something. I mean, it was like be a criminal event.
Well, let's say, okay, that's another thing. Well, let's do that.
We changed our whole
Why do we not want to have electricity available? What do you want? Everybody to go back and live in a candle?
But that's
you want to go backwards and everybody can just live with nothing? You can't have any. How about a flowering of capability?
It's not necessary.
Well, okay.
It's not necessary.
Liberation would be in the plan.
It's not necessary. The use of electricity is
very important.
But we use less now than ever.
Well, you want us to use less? You want us to live by candlelight?
No, we've been using less since 1970. We've been steadily using less.
Okay, I don't know what that means exactly. I mean, I'm just not familiar.
Right. What it means is that conservation methods worked. Replacing things that people might think are, replacing light bulbs, incandescent light bulbs with.
That's just good design.
Yeah, with all the design has changed the world. I mean, the need for massive centralized sources of electricity is a dinosaur.
You're not going to say we don't.
It's a
You're not
dinosaur.
going to say we don't need electricity.
No, I'm saying that we don't need
It drives the whole world economy.
Plants.
What?
We don't need these dinosaur plants.
How about the number 4 they got? The one they got now, totally safe. Atomic energy, away. I
don't want to get into a direct conflict, but there's nothing safe about nuclear energy.
Okay, you want to make, you got to make that point.
It's never safe.
That's the point that they got to sell on the people.
Right.
They're hoodwinking the people.
Yes,
in order to build an industry.
Right.
Is that so you can get
No, even worse, in order to give people who worked on the nuclear Navy jobs when they leave the Navy.
Well, that would be a way of building up. Well,
they did. Rickover built he built the commercial nuclear industry on purpose to hire the people he was training to build the submarines.
Well, that would have been certainly part of it, and certainly they built.
You're
absolutely right. They built up a huge military, and they want to keep
that. Was a huge part of it.
They've got to keep in keeping with the 200,000-year legacy of keeping the people scared out of their wits and intimidated.
Yeah.
That's what you have to do. You can't allow it to be a world where people can have what they need and want. You got to keep them like serfs on a feudal estate. Their mentality in order to get the things done so the few people can live in the palace. I don't think we need to do that. It may be the fact that we got a point, yin and yang, we got a point where people can become haves. Everybody can become haves. They got new things coming. They got new uses of it. We want energy. We need energy put to improving the human condition, not just for a few, but for everybody.
There's enough.
You think so?
Energy isn't the problem. They found many ways of producing electricity. As a matter of fact, now the main thing that's it's not the anti-nuclear movement. The main thing that's an impediment to nuclear power production is cheap natural gas from fracking. I mean, there's so much natural gas, unfortunately, being produced by fracking. It's way cheaper than a nuclear power plant.
Well, the one thing you could say
expensive.
to that is that the fracking would be something that wouldn't have to be done.
And
if you can get your electric energy from
nuclear power was so safe,
well, it might well be.
Then why won't anybody insure it?
Well, because there's a big public relations and a lot of economic interest. There's a lot of economic interest in keeping the people scared.
But the government has to insure it. Since World War II, the government has insured all these companies against catastrophic failure.
Well, that's a larger issue about the market.
Today.
That's the market. What's the role of the market?
No insurance company will insure nuclear power. They will not insure for catastrophic loss because they know if there was a catastrophic loss, if there was a catastrophic loss of coolant accident in a nuclear power plant like happened in Fukushima, the cost of it would be a significant percentage of a whole country's GDP.
How many people have died outside of the effect of the ungodly, huge, out of any sync?
I don't know, and I don't really.
Tsunami that happened.
I don't know.
It was a tsunami. It was a natural thing.
No, do you want to move there?
Yeah, I think Hansen's been there. He goes there. People are there.
Oh, no.
How many people died at Chernobyl? None, I think. Nobody died.
I don't know.
How many died at 3 Mile Island?
But they've got
an image that they have to project. They got an image that they have to project in order to protect the people who are making money.
No, radiation is not good. I don't care what anybody says. People trying to sell us on this wolf tickets that somehow radiation is okay. It's not okay. The government has never thought it was okay. There's never been one, no matter how conservative, I don't care if it was Reagan or Nixon or any of these people have ever supported what some nuclear engineers and scientists have wanted.
Who was the woman who did it? I did her way back when she was the head of it. What was her name?
That crazy person, Dixie Ray Lee.
I did a program with Dixie Lee Ray. She was saying
Dixie
right
Lee
at the
Ray.
beginning. I've done programs with people. They say they're
safe. She was a crazy lady.
No, she wasn't crazy. I didn't see her. I tried to find it. I don't have it saved.
Oh, too bad. I'd love to see it.
It was back in the 70s.
Oh, I'd love
she
to
was
see
saying
that.
it's safe.
Right.
It's safe. It can be safe. It's safe. Now, you want to have an interest in it not being safe.
And then 5 years later, you had...
What?
3 Mile Island.
3 Mile Island, nobody died.
Nobody
died. They made a
big
thing out of it.
Do you
what's going on there now down the street from where 3 Mile Island is? Is it all boarded off?
I'm not a medic. I don't know the facts and figures. People have had
I'm
different
saying
numbers.
it's a big snow job.
People have had different numbers, but I'll tell you this. That the government was the one who told people to get out of there.
Yeah, right. Well, they're an answer.
A conservative Republican governor said get out of there.
Well, they might be answering to the ignorance of the people.
No,
they've been fed something ignorantly. And that the people are going to make the pressure in order to follow the ignorant idea that the people are feeding them.
No, because you could get thyroid cancer from, you could get from iodine, you get strontium in your system, you can get bone cancer, liver cancer, you get cesium in your system, you can get bone cancer. Plutonium causes bone cancer. I mean, those are well-known facts.
So, well, that's the thing. I think,
whether they're saying that there's like some little minimum amount.
No.
Below that minimum amount is safe, which is what they're trying to say. But I'm telling you, not one government official, not one president of the United States has ever approved.
Well, that's because he's intimidated by the ignorance of the population.
Well, I don't see
being
Reagan.
fed by an
Reagan
industry
wasn't intimidated. Even Ronald Reagan knew it was wrong.
What was wrong?
It would be wrong to just to allow radiation into the environment.
Well, okay.
He knew it was wrong. They all knew it was wrong. Everybody knows it's wrong. They won't do it. I mean, some crazy people want to do it because they
think. You think Jim Hansen is crazy at what
I don't know.
Doing?
I have to talk to him
There's
personally.
a huge movement among intelligent people that we should tap into atomic. Why has France been? Because it's clean.
It's not
clean. You've got to.
What's clean about it?
It doesn't create any carbon dioxide. It doesn't pollute. The global warming issue.
Two things. Number one, and I'm sure people will disagree with me, but I'll say it: the whole process of mining the uranium and producing the uranium and making the fuel, the whole process of building the plants and everything that goes into maintaining the plants produces carbon dioxide.
What is the new thing about the number four?
And number two is that. What do you do with the waste stream from this stuff?
Yeah, that's something you follow very carefully.
And growing and growing and growing level of waste. And now this is the worst thing about it, all right? Let's say you were right that if everything given perfect conditions and everything perfect, the perfect world, everything was done, everything was put in the proper place to store, everything was put in safe locations, there was no leakage into groundwater, air, there were no trucks that moved it that crashed or were hijacked, there were no terrorist attacks against waste storage facilities.
Or plants themselves.
Let's say all of that happened and nothing happened wrong. What's to stop a bunch of crooked, corrupt SOBs from just sticking it into some poor schmuck's backyard, which happens all the time?
Well, that sounds like part of the human condition, all right. Yes. They always put it off on the poor, that's all.
And when I trace it back, the people who are the most corrupt are usually like, Rick Perry's brother-in-law or something like that. Something, always.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah, right.
Always.
Well, you heard it here first. But what we ought to do is let the people talk.
Yes.
Let them talk,
That's
including everybody.
Right.
Nothing's off the table.
Nothing.
Something can become, even the pioneer of global warming intelligence is telling us we should use atomic energy as the source of clean energy in order to keep to meet the challenge of global warming, which has a huge following. And they want to conflate, they want to have atomic energy put in with fossil fuels. And that's the wrong kind of attitude.
And I'm saying one catastrophic failure would destroy that whole plan.
That would. You have a hell of a PR thing.
Yeah, right.
And who's going to handle the PR contract on that gig?
Right.
Okay, listen, we can't go on. It's Paul DeRienzo. Thank you very much. Say hello to your dad.
I will do that.
And it's really good talking to you. It's your pleasure to have his perceptions. We'll be coming back, tomorrow. And and thank you very much for. We got off on other things and everything, but it's
very interesting.
It is interesting in terms of let them talk.
Yes, my show, Let Them Talk, which is every Tuesday.
Yes, talk it.
Manhattan
sell
Neighborhood
it, sell
Network.
it, sell it, sell it.
Manhattan Neighborhood Network at 8 p.m.
Yeah.
And on YouTube.com/LetTemTalk.
Yeah.
And YouTube.com/LETEMTALK. You can see the show, or you can see it here on channel Lifestyle Channel 2.
And tell them it's streamed to the world.
Yeah, it's
streamed to the world.
ManhattanNeighborhoodNetwork.org.
Manhattan Neighborhood Network, great thing, right?
Yeah, Channel 2.
We should be getting out good news on
that. Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Thank you, my brother.
Thank
it's
you.
great talking
It's been great.
to you.
Yeah.
Your pleasure. We'll be coming back tomorrow. That's it for now, Paul. Thanks a whole lot.
Thank you.
And thanks for all your work at BAI and everything like that.
Thank you for your work. You're doing a great job.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think we can say goodbye now. Okay. Empire State Building. That's the target, I think, for a lot of people who would like to land an atomic bomb on top of it.
That was the target